My name is Thomas Nguyen. I'm a co-founder of a South African restaurant group here in Houston, Texas. Anybody had South African food before? Yeah, a little bit? Okay. So my goal here is to tell you about how my life has changed because of eating South African food. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't even sound appetizing, right? Most of you probably never heard of South African food. Yeah, I get it. I've heard it all. No one really knows what it is, but I'm going to tell you about how it's changed my life. So in order to do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about my background and shed some light on how I got to this point. So for me, I was born in Chicago. I'm an only child, and my family and I have lived in Katy, Texas, a suburb of Houston, since 1979. And back in the 80s and 90s, there weren't a lot of Asian families in Katy. You know, in my high school class, there were about 8 Asian kids, or at least it felt that way. And through no one else's fault but mine, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was a loner in high school. It was really difficult for me to fit in. I was socially awkward. I was really shy. If I had to pick a best friend during high school, it was probably my mom, you know, which is not a knock against her. She's really cool. I just had a really hard time fitting in, and because of that, I thought that the answer would be for me to maybe be surrounded by other Asian kids. I was thinking that's the solution. So after I graduated high school, I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and I had an opportunity to co-found an Asian fraternity. So from that, all of my friends were Asian. All the parties I went to, all the groups that I joined were Asian interests. And I finally found a place where I felt like I fit in. Right? So growing up, my mom would only cook Vietnamese food. So I would grow up eating Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean. When I felt adventurous, I'd eat sushi. Right? My palate was really limited. I mean, if you had asked me at that time if I was okay with eating only Asian food for the rest of my life, I would have told you yes, absolutely, and believed it. Kind of sad, right, in hindsight. So I graduated undergrad. I went to law school at UT, came out, practiced for 3 years, and at the age of 27, after now I have a lot of friends, now I've been able to find some place to fit in, got a great education, had a promising career. But at the age of 27, I was feeling really unfulfilled and unmotivated and unhappy. I mean, how did this happen? I thought I had everything that I wanted, but then I didn't. So fortunately for me, I had a really good friend, a fraternity brother, one of my partners, Michael Tran. He had actually convinced me to leave law after I worked so hard to get in, leave law, and together we would find a business that we could be passionate about. And along the way, we met this amazing South African chef, Paul Friedman. And together, the three of us would open our very first restaurant in 2009. Now, if I thought introducing a new cuisine no one's ever heard of in 2009 in the suburbs in a city that has over 10,000 restaurants, if I thought it was easy, I was delusional. It was crazy. Nobody wanted. I couldn't pay people to eat our food the first year. It was that sad. I literally would be in front of our restaurant on the weekends begging people to try our food. No one wanted to hear it. It was especially difficult for me because I'd never worked in a restaurant before. I never had my own business either. So one of my favorite stories, one of my failures, this is a true story, by the way. One day I'd spent about 20 minutes, I met this group of really sweet older ladies. And I had convinced them that you've got to try this food, it's amazing. They got excited and said, let's do it, this sounds fantastic. They walk into the restaurant, they get seated. 5 minutes later, they get up and they leave. How did that happen? I go over to my server, Anne-Marie. I said, Anne-Marie, what just happened? I'll never forget the look she had on her face. She said, Thomas, all I did was try to take their appetizer order. And the lady wanted dumplings. And I said, ma'am, we don't serve dumplings. I said, what kind of Chinese restaurant doesn't serve dumplings? Right? So for me, I'm like, this is hopeless. No one's going to give a shit about South African food, and especially not from an Asian guy, right? Really defeated, really angry, really discouraged. And the problem wasn't with the food. The food was actually really good. The problem wasn't with people. The problem was me. I was not able to connect to people about South African food because I didn't really understand what it meant. South African food, as I learned, South Africa is known as the Rainbow Nation. And what makes it unique is there's so much variety of cuisine and people and cultures that make up South Africa. There's Dutch influence, Indian, British, Portuguese, the surrounding African countries. It created this melting pot of this diversity of people and cultures. That's what makes South Africa so unique and special. I mean, much like Houston, much like this amazing country that we live in. It's the diversity of people and cultures that makes it special. And it took me a while to understand that. So as I got into it, I started eating more curries and, all these different pies and all these traditional foods, mealie pop, boerewors, biltongs, really traditional, authentic South African, Indian, British foods. I started developing an appetite for more ethnic cuisine. I started eating Filipino food, Pakistani food, Venezuelan. One of my favorite dishes became goat chops, of all things, from this wonderful Pakistani restaurant here in Houston called Aga. My favorite show became Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern, of all things. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Some of the foods that I tried, not crazy about, I would never try it again. But a lot of the foods that I did try, man, so good. There were so many seasonings and spices and marinades and flavors that I was like, it took me 30 years to try this stuff? Jeez, where have I been? I mean, I felt like, what have I been doing? It totally changed my perspective on food. And then something unexpected happened to me simply because I was forcing myself to eat outside of my comfort zone, right? For me, eating outside of my comfort zone, eating things that made me feel uncomfortable, eating things that were even scary to me, it helped burst this bubble that I've been living in all my life. And I realized that when you live in this little bubble that you've created, you only know what you know. The things that you can taste, experience, and do are actually really limited. And, for me, these last few years have been a totally different life for me. I've been able to accomplish things that I've never thought were even possible because my mind is now more open to trying new things and meeting new people, learning about other cultures, and exploring things that are outside of my comfort zone. For me, I've finally been able to bungee jump. I've skydived. I've been able to complete 2 Ironman triathlons. I've run 50 miles for fun. I've been in a Chuck Norris commercial. I've even started my own nonprofit. And it's all because I finally realized that there's so much bigger world out there than what was around me. Simply because I was exposing myself to other cultures by eating their food. So I'm going to leave you guys with one thing. We're going to have a little experiment, okay? I'm going to help you figure out whether or not you just wasted 10 minutes of your life listening to me or whether this is going to have some positive impact on your life, okay? So this is what we're going to do, right? Think about a restaurant that you've never wanted to eat at because of the cuisine. Think about a food that you've never wanted to try, even if it's nasty to you. Just think about what it is. And after this talk or this video, go out and try it. Just try it. Force yourself to go out there and just try it. And understand and acknowledge that you may totally hate it. You may hate me for making you try it. But what I'm hoping is that it's going to be the first step of many for you to start eating outside of your comfort zone and start experiencing this world around us. I'm convinced that there's a lot of unnecessary hate in this world because people will make judgments on things and on people and on cultures without ever really giving it a chance or really exploring it for themselves. Don't be one of those people. Thank you, guys.